On Saturday evening, September 13th, 2007, our guest today received a phone call from her 22-year-old daughter's cell phone. However, her daughter was not on the line. Rather, Karen, a friend of her daughter, was screaming and sobbing that Laura was not breathing and had gone into Dr. Rapin Osathanond's office in Hyannis, Massachusetts, to have an abortion that day. Well, the death of Laura Hope Smith raises many questions. From the specific questions, what actually happened, to broader questions like, are abortionists being treated differently from other medical doctors who must account for every action involving a patient? And why does the old media, like the established newspapers, refuse to cover Laura's death? Is the old media in bed with the abortion industry? Today's guest, the mother of Laura Smith, will address these questions. I think you'll find today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Well, welcome, Mrs. Eileen Smith.
Thank you, Brendan, for having me today.
Nice of you to come all the way up from the Cape. Before we get started, I'd just like to mention the call-in phone number. Should our guests have any questions for our audience has any questions for our guest today, the phone number regarding Laura Smith's death is 617-973-4848. Well, could you please discuss for us, Mrs. Smith, what happened and your thoughts and feelings upon receiving the phone call that Saturday evening informing you of Laura's death?
Well, Brendan, it's a phone call that no parent ever wants to get. My life changed overnight, and it's never been the same since.
Your feelings, were you in shock at the time? Or?
Yeah, absolutely in shock. You just keep thinking it can't happen to you, it can't happen to your child, and you just don't want to believe the unbelievable.
I see. And did you have any idea that Laura was having an abortion?
No, Laura had spent the summer with us at the Jersey Shore, and we had a wonderful summer, and we just brought her back to the Cape a few days before. We had no idea she was pregnant. Her fiancé was shipped off to Iraq about a month ago. Laura found out she was pregnant, and I guess she decided she couldn't deal with it, with him not being around. But we had no idea.
How far along in the process was she?
She was 13 weeks.
She was 13 weeks along. And why do you think she withheld that she was pregnant with you or your husband?
I guess she didn't want to disappoint us, is my only concern, my only thought on the matter, that she thought we would not be happy with it. Well, of course we would. You know, she was engaged, she was going to be married. I wouldn't have seen it as a problem. I guess she did.
And what kind of a person was Laura?
Laura was a joy. As you know, we adopted Laura when she was 5 years old. She was originally from Honduras, and she was a product of a failed adoption. The first adoption didn't work out, and we got her at 5, and she was a joy to our life. She really was. We rescued her from an abusive situation, but she really blessed our lives in ways we could never imagine she would have.
That's something. Now, do you think Laura's peer group pushed her either emotionally or psychologically to go ahead with an abortion?
I will never know the answers to those questions. You know, no one has come forward to say that, and if anything, they've said the opposite. But I understand with Laura being dead now, they're not going to come up to me and say we were the ones that talked her into having the abortion.
I see.
If they did, they must feel guilt-ridden.
I see. You had shared to me that a relative had a niece?
Yes, just a month previous to Laura's death, Laura was actually involved with it. We were trying to talk our niece out of having the abortion, and Laura was there with it. She saw our concern for her. We offered to help with the baby, help find a home for the child. She saw our reaction, so I don't know why she wouldn't think we'd have the same reaction, if not more, for our own child.
And what about the biological father? Was he in the picture at all?
Well, he's in Iraq. He was stationed in Iraq. He had just left a month previous.
So that month was August then?
August. Yeah, he left mid-July for Iraq. Is when he left, and he called one of his friends and found out Laura had died the day before. I talked to him. He was devastated. He knew Laura was pregnant, and he told me he was against abortion, but he did say he told Laura it was up to her.
And in this country, men have no rights whatsoever, legal rights, after a woman is pregnant, as far as the decision whether to keep or abort a child. You mentioned Laura was a Christian attending Calvary Chapel on Cape Cod. Did she consult her pastor?
No, her pastor was just as surprised as we were, actually.
Is that
He
right?
knew nothing about it.
Wow. And many priests, pastors, and rabbis are afraid to broach the topic of contraception or abortion and the aftermath of abortion from the pulpit. Do you feel as if the moral leaders, they should have the moral courage to speak about these topics?
Absolutely. And before Laura's death, I was one of them. I never, I've always been pro-life in my heart, but I've never been active in any way, shape, or form. But after what's happened to Laura, I realized the ignorance of the people having abortions, the ignorance of society, what abortion is, and absolutely, I think the church needs to speak out.
Didn't you mention that some of these pastors apologized to you, or?
Yeah, there were 8 pastors at her funeral, and at least one came up to me and really said he feels horrible that he has not spoken about this from his pulpit, and he will from now on.
I see. Well, that's good to hear. Since September 13th, what have you found out about Laura's death?
Well, it seems every week there's a new revelation. I get more and more information. I have moved to the Cape to research what happened and to keep the pressure on and bring justice for Laura. And I'm learning new things every week about the tragedy of her death. For
instance, I think you had mentioned to me that the autopsy, how does that process happen? She still has not been buried, is that correct?
That's correct. We're afraid to bury her. She's been dead almost 3 months now, but we're afraid to bury her because we're waiting for the autopsy reports that we have not even received yet. But the DA has come out to say that Laura's death was unattended and anesthesia-related. So I feel confident that we are going to get to the resolution that we're looking for.
What do you mean by the word unattended?
Well, to me it means that no one was with her when she died. The doctor, I think, was the only one, and he may have even left the room by that statement.
I see. And now, you had a meeting with the abortionist, Dr. Rapin Osathanondh. What was that like? Was that when you met him?
Well, we met. He wanted to meet in public. He wouldn't allow my husband to come, and we met at the Boston Harbor Hotel lobby. It was very surreal meeting the man that killed my daughter, but I wanted to talk to him and find out and get as much information as I could.
And was he forthcoming with information, or no?
Well, he certainly gave me a lot of information. Whether it was truthful or not, I don't know. I think there's things I'm finding out that I'm sure he knew at the time and didn't tell me.
I see. And did he have any kind of a report with him at that time?
He did show me the medical records. He showed me the medical records. I'm not from the medical field, but by reading what he showed me, it really, I was really concerned that there was something went wrong and he was the cause of Laura's death from reading the medical records.
And did he give you a copy of the records at that time?
No, he didn't give me a copy of the medical records.
And have you been able to get a copy of the medical records?
After going to court 2 times, I got a copy of the medical records. They were actually trying to protect the medical records from me and did not want to release them to me because we did not have a personal administratorship for Laura's estate, which we were unable to get because there was no death certificate due to the nature of her death. So
and you had to wait for the autopsy, so there was no death certificate.
That's right. It was like a catch-22. So they used that to not give me the death records. First, my daughter was, died in his office at his hand, and then they tried to get me not to get the records for a long time.
And what excuse were they saying that to not? Aren't you the mother? I mean, what excuse?
Laura was an adult. She wasn't a child, and because only a personal administrator can request them. I was not her personal administrator, and I said it was a legal snafu in the sense there was no death certificate, so I could not apply for personal administrative. But they did finally release them to me with an order of secrecy, which is still on today, meaning we could just use her records for